in a very, very nice way. It's a good beginning through their community colleges initiative. I don't know how many of you all know this. They've started this whole community college initiative, and there is a process by which you can actually go and join a course there and then subsequently do a distance education program and get yourself a degree too. And finally, what you need is a certification. So what does the awarding body finally do? They give you a certificate, or that certification, which is valuable because at the end of it, you get a job. That's an awarding body. Very quickly, what do you need from industry? Industry is a very, very key stakeholder. So when Amalan asked me, where does Dilip belong? I think he belongs to the private sector. Because we're hoping, and I'm sure he will, that he will bring industry to the table. It's a big player in this whole jigsaw puzzle. Okay, what does industry essentially do? They give you placement, right? This whole business is about creating jobs. This business is not about training. Training enables jobs, right? So when you go and get a learner to a classroom, finally you're telling that person, listen, at the end of this you're going to get a job. So it's about employment and not about employability. I think if we don't internalize this ourselves, I think we'll get lost in the way. So it's all about employment and not employability, and employment happens when you create jobs. So that's what industry does, simple. Today what's happening in industry, it's very interesting. If you look at the retail industry, and that's one of the courses that we are doing a reasonably good job, and we've launched it. It's the first qualification. In the bottom of the pyramid segment in industry today, trespassers are hired. If you go to any retail store, there's a board that says, come in, I need people badly, I will hire you. Right? So we have this job fair model. Let me give you a small example of the way we acquire students, right, in our whole B2C model. So we do things like job fairs. And what is a job fair? We go and put a small little classified ad, and we tell people that come here and we'll give you a job. Of course, we also say that you'll have to get yourself trained and stuff like that, and try and not camouflage it, but try and show the job up front there. So we have Reliance Retail, we have Madura Garments, and all the logos nicely flashed there, and finally show people a job. So when these people come in, we have the employer sitting on the panel. Okay? Typically in a job fair, in a place in Bangalore called Hebbal, where we have a station, where we have a center. We have a center, or say Masap Tank. We have a center in Hyderabad in Masap Tank. So we do a job fair in Masap Tank. We typically get about 200 people walking into our center. Capacity of that center is about 20 or 30. It'll have one classroom. 200 people walk in. Great joy. Everybody is like damn thrilled. 200 people come in, then you talk to them, they meet the employer counsels them. At the end of it, the employer actually ends up selecting about 10 of them whom the employer finds fit. Right? And they'll say, these 10 people are good, I can actually even employ them. Then about 30-40 of them, the employer will say, these are what are called trainable rejects. Okay, there's a metric that we've developed. We've got a company called Meritrack, which is a very good company in assessment. So they help us actually build some metrics like this. So 50% of them, so if 200 come, about 15-20 the retailer says I can even employ them. But if you want, polish them a bit, give them a soft skills course and stuff like that and push them in. About 50% of them, which will be about 100 of them, they'll say these are trainable rejects. So you can actually train them. So the industry will actually give them a letter and stuff like that saying come. And then when you go back to those 100 people and say, now the course costs 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, out of those 100 people, two of them come and register. You're lucky if you get 5. Right? Because all of them think that they can actually go directly and get the job. Why should I pay 5,000 rupees? I can actually walk into that company and get a job. You know what that company does one day later? Calls my salesperson and says, listen, can I just get that phone numbers of that balance 100? So we said, why? She said, no, I think I can call them and see if they're not joining you, I'll hire them. Dilip, this is the situation day on day. We do this across the country. We currently have close to about 42, 43 centers across the country and growing rapidly. At the end of this quarter will be 75. At the end of the year will be 109 centers across the country. And none of the centers, each will have typically a capacity of about 30-40 students that they can get. None of them are running anything more than 30-40% of capacity. Right? So there's huge capacity built and huge capacity being built as we go along. But classrooms are empty. And this is what's happening actually. Because the employer is willing to hire them without training. Because the employers, I don't blame them. Because there is no supply chain built to the employer as yet. How can the employer shut his business? waiting for IndiaSkilled to deliver? No way. So the problem is that this inflection point will come when, the third point that I'm saying, when industry starts mandating certification. I'll give you a quick another example. I think it was Abhinav who talked about UK and plumbing and all that. You know, I was in the London Underground because we are doing a few large projects with the metros in the country today. We've actually signed up, with one of the largest metros to do some certification programs on construction and construction safety. So, I was called to the London Underground, which is the oldest, underground, to see what they do in training. At the London Underground, you cannot work there till you're insured. You cannot get an insurance policy till you have a City and Guild certification. I keep talking about this example of this PUC certificate. This pollution control certificate? One way to have done it by the government should have said, we want to make this country very pollution free and, so we need your support. So please try and get all your cars certified. Do you think anybody will go and get it certified? The day it got linked to getting your RC book, it's done. Right? So the industry really needs to work closely with us to start mandating certification, and you can't do it at 100% because their business will stop. So do it slowly, do it bit by bit. Great initiative by Dilip and team to start forming sector councils, which is the other point we're talking about. Sector skills councils are nothing but when industry stalwarts get together in a particular sector, form a council, and that council starts deciding that our sector now will focus on skills and will try and employ as many people with skills and certified skills. So who will certify them? They will empanel a set of certification partners. They will say this is the standard. They will say this is the way to go. I think that will change this business. The inflection point will come when that sector council across 20-30 sectors starts delivering. I think there's one in auto. Great news, Dilip gave me this morning that this retail one is getting set up. And they need to really get tough about it. If they don't get tough about it, and things are not going to work. And that's the other thing that we expect government to do, from a mandating perspective. So industry, and when I say deep engagement, industry really needs to engage very deeply with vocational partners in terms of helping them build curriculum, telling them when they need people, where they need people. Because what happens is when you produce people and you go back to the industry, he says, oh, this month I don't want people. So if he's able to give you a month-wise, region-wise forecast, you're able to plan your output better. Government, very simple, I was just talking about what the government benefits. But what we really need from the government is one very, very important thing. Vocational education today doesn't have the legitimacy, right? Today, people take up to vocational education by force and not by choice. This is a favorite subject of mine which I go and speak everywhere. You're pushed into vocational training, right? If you joined an ITI, you knew that you were a loser. So if that's the status that vocational education has in the country, it will never succeed. Because it doesn't have the legitimacy. The only body in this country that can make that work is the government. Through announcing schemes, talking good things about what it means to get certified, advertising, channelizing funds, the voucher system, build a set of vouchers. Today, 18 government departments independently fund vocational training, and except people like us who are hungry and desperate for business, nobody knows. Who knows? Does a learner know that he can approach a government department and get funding? No. That's because the government is not doing enough to talk about the fact that we'll fund you, we'll take care of jobs, we will certify, we'll talk to industry, etc., etc., etc. And that's really something that one is hoping that NSDC and organizations like this will start doing. And I also think that they should channelize everything to NSDC. All the 18 government departments should work through one agency. So it becomes easier for partners like us and for industry. So the government has a big role to play in basically legitimizing this whole business of vocational. Quickly, delivery centers, what do they need to do? They need to deliver quality, they need to have quality standards, have great faculty. Simple, they'll do all that provided they see money. Moment they run a batch of 5 people in their center, they bleed. Right? If they bleed, they won't be in business. So a delivery center really needs to see money. This is the only motivation actually, to actually go and start, pushing business. Other enablers are funding agencies. You have banks, you have microfinance companies, you have NGOs, you have a whole lot of such people who can actually come and enable this whole process. And finally, there's the student. We know what the student benefits, right? Student benefits in terms of getting a good job. So he gets a good livelihood, he gets some status in society and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm done. This is the last slide. The key thing that we need a student to do is to come and complete the course, right? Most students drop out halfway, especially when it's free and funded, right? So that's all we need from them. And so finally what happens if all these things happen, all these policy makers work together, we have a nice, smiling vocational training system. Thank you.